Hey fabulous artists! Today I'm going to show you some very basic steps in Procreate. First, we're going to look at how to use brushes and how to make them opaque and transparent. Next, I'm going to show you some fun ways of learning how to use a color palette and create a color palette in Procreate. And thirdly, I'm going to show you how to take a photograph and work on it to create a much more abstracted image. All right, I hope you enjoy. Let's go look at Procreate.
Okay guys, I'm going to give you a real quick overview of Procreate Basics. So when you open Procreate, you see this plus sign in the upper right corner. You want to click on that, and that's how you add a new canvas, so to speak. And these are just the various sizes. You can click on a bunch of them to see what's what. I picked the bottom one, which is kind of long and narrow, sort of like screen size for film. In the upper right corner, you'll see a colored dot. And when click on that and it pulls down the color wheel, and click on that outer dial and you can pick what color range you want to be in, and you'll see blue there. And then that inner dial you can move around and pick lights, darks, grays, brights, all the different parts of that color, and you'll see what color you picked in that dot in the upper right corner. So if I change it now, you'll see that upper right corner is changing to whatever color that little inner dot is ending up on. All right, this little brush symbol is your brushes selection. So for painting, I pretty much almost always use this Nico rule. When I correct your paintings and make marks on them and things in class, that's what I'm using. So I'm picking that. And now down these two levers that are either on the right side or sometimes they're on the bottom of your page. You can adjust where these go. But anyway, they're usually on the right. That bottom one is transparency. So see, if I put it all the way to the top, it's very opaque. And if I move it to the bottom, it's very transparent, the mark. And this top lever is for the thickness of the brush. So if I move it down, it's going to be very skinny. Now I'm actually drawing a line here, but you can't see it because it's so thin and transparent. So I move that up to be opaque again, and you'll see me draw the line, a very thin little line. And then if you move that lever up to the top, you see a big, huge fat mark can come down. Now, if you want to erase or you make a mistake and you want to undo it, those arrows at the bottom are do and undo, depending on which one you pick. Okay, that's just a real basic, quick overview of Procreate. Now we're going to get into how to create a palette. Again, we want to go back up to our little color selector here and click on that colored dot, pull down our color wheel. And if you look at the bottom here, you'll see where it says palettes. Click on palettes. And there are a few here that are given to you that kind of come with the program. Yours might be a little different. Up in that upper right corner now you'll see a plus button, and we want to do new from photos. This will link to your photos albums, and you can pick either photos or your albums up at the top, and I'm scrolling through some of my albums here, and I'm going to pick that one that says color, and it has a bunch of paintings in it that we could choose a palette from, but right now I'm going to pick this sunset up here in the upper left corner. And voila, it immediately produces a palette from that sunset, and that's what you're looking at up there in that upper band of those 3 rows of colors, which is pretty cool. That's from that photograph. So you can come back now and start creating colors from that palette. What I'm doing here is clicking on a color. If you look closely, you'll see the color kind of jump there. I picked that kind of darker whatever, yellow orange. And I'm just throwing some of the colors up here so you can see how that can work and how they can combine. And you can get a really lovely palette from doing something like that. So these are just kind of fun ways of giving you new ideas of how you might create palettes. Now we're going to do it again. And I'm going to go back up to the albums, my albums, and I'm going to scroll through. And this time I'm going to pick a painting. One of my paintings that I did that I've always really liked the palette from this painting. And now we've got really quickly a whole other palette, and you can pick it from someone else's paintings, from your paintings, anything that you're inspired by. I wouldn't necessarily say to combine the palettes like I'm doing now, but this just kind of happened to work, that these colors all work together. This is actually the same palette. Even those colors from the sunset are pretty much in that painting as well. So that was just happenstance. But anyway, that's how you can create a painting from a palette of a photograph or a painting. That middle button I just did right there is the erase button. Just FYI, that's important to know. That middle one up there, it looks like a little eraser. You can erase what you've done. Okay, now this is also really cool to use Procreate. We can go from the palette that we've created to experimenting with an image. So here I've imported a photo of myself. And now this is very important. You want to go up and you want to create a layer, because think of this as the background of this is white, the photo is the photo, and you want to draw on a layer, sort of like tracing paper on top of the layer. If you don't do that, you get into trouble when you try to erase, because you'll go back to that white and it's a pain. So always remember to create at least one layer. So now we're clicking on the palette that we imported from the sunset. And we are going to we're going to overlay some of these colors on top of this photograph and experiment with what we might do in a potential painting. So I'm going to start with that kind of lighter blue. You'll see here I'm using that Nico rule that I like, adjusting the brush size and the opacity a little bit. And I'm just going to start painting right on the photo and see what could be done potentially with using this figure in kind of an abstracted way. Now these are meant to be very loose, and I'm not trying to create, personally anyway, I'm not trying to create a really exact painting with this. I'm just trying to get ideas of colors and shapes and values, and how I might potentially work a painting with a figure from a photograph. Remember, you can, and you can also see, if you notice that I just adjusted the color. So I took a color from that palette, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted, so I'm moving that inner wheel circle around so that I can get it closer to what I'm thinking in my brain and work from that. So the palettes that you obtain this way, you don't have to stick to the exact colors. You can certainly adapt them and use them as jumping off points to create your work. And this is just a fun way of working. I'll also bring in paintings that I'm working on when I want to look at them and see if I want to change colors on them without actually doing it on the canvas. So sometimes I'll bring a painting into Procreate and I'll try a different colored background or dress or whatever it is that I'm experimenting with, and paint right on it this way to see what it might look like. Very similar again to what I do in class when in the Facebook group with you guys when I work on your paintings. Oh, okay, this is important. What you just saw there, when you saw that big circle pop up, you're going to see it again here a few times. I'm pressing on the screen. When you press on the screen on a certain color, you pick up that color and it becomes the color that you're painting with. So you watch me here and you'll see a big circle pop up on the painting every now and then, and that's me pressing on that screen, essentially picking up that color that I'm pressing on and using that as my paint color. And this is me fooling around trying to get the right values on her. She's going to be in a dress, so I'm kind of creating different values and trying that to see what I feel will work, values and colors, to create shadow and light. There, I just picked up the white from the top and pulled that down. Reflecting a little bit of that gold that I pulled on the far right edge. Yeah, and using a little skin tones in there. Again, this is very rough. I'm not trying to be exact at all. It's more a study to see potentially values and colors and shapes and how this could possibly work into a painting using this palette. And you can do this with your finger. You can simply do it with your finger and draw, or you can get an Apple pencil. For finer work, obviously the Apple pencil is a little bit easier. I really love it, but I do an awful lot of this. I'll forget my pencil or I won't have it with me, so I'll often do this with just my finger. So you don't have to have that pencil. These are all kind of subtle adjustments of skin tones. If you look closely, I'm working on her legs a little bit. Again, this is so rough. I'm not at all trying to get the right shapes of her legs or working on making them real pretty at this point. It's just more for an overall feel of color and value and shape. Now I'm picking up an actual color from the photograph underneath because I liked some of the browns that was in the original photo. So I put my finger right on those colors and picked up from that. And then adjusted it a little bit because it felt a little too dark. Pinked it up a little bit. If you notice that, I selected from that original palette of the sunset, I selected a white that had a little bit of a pink tone to it there. Pulling that kind of gold color around the painting a little bit. I really like that for kind of a spark of color throughout. Oh, now I'm working on her hair color a little too dark, a little too brown, so mess around with that some. Again, very general here, big strokes, nothing, no detail. Filling in more skin tones. Okay, now I'm going in the background a little. I kind of like the idea of having some darks back there. The effect that it was having now, even that's too much dark, but I'll tone it down. But it's a little hard to see, but I'm scribbling some darks back there. And I'm going to go over that with some more transparent paint here so you can still see it a little bit. See, here we go. but you get the feeling of something happening possibly back there. And there you have how you can take a palette from a photograph of any kind and translate it potentially into and work on top of another photo, right? And translate it into a painting. You can even do this on paintings that you like, that you would like to do a series of, and maybe do the same image again but in a different palette, or change the shapes or something slightly and use the same figure. So it's a fun way to explore, and obviously you can do it anywhere that you can carry your iPad, or you can actually do this on your phone as well, although it gets tiny. But it's a fun thing to do, and it's also an excellent tool to use to create work and to study your own work and to study color. So I hope you guys have learned from this and can have fun using it. I'm actually erasing there a little bit to go back to what's underneath in the photo, because I liked a little bit of the green and some of the texture that was in there. So that's what I was doing there. And I added some black line because I liked the little sketch mark there. It's a little heavy, but it can remind me to do that if I was creating this and turning this into a painting. Adding a touch of green in the back, and I'm pretty close to done here. I'm gonna finish off that little area there, and there you have it. So I hope those of you that have Apple products can use this and find it helpful, and also those of you with Androids can use Photoshop and find that helpful as well. So just an idea of how to use technology. Have fun.